We're taught that obstacles are things that stop us. Marcus Aurelius wrote something else in his journal. He said the raw material for your character, it comes from difficulty. That flips the script, so a barrier in your path, it's not a blockade. It's the substance you use to build a stronger self. In this video, you'll get a practical blueprint from Stoic philosophy. For turning obstacles into advantages, we'll go beyond positive thinking. We'll look at 3 Stoic disciplines: how to see a challenge, how to act, how to will your way through. This isn't about grim endurance. It's about an empowering way to engage with reality. What if your biggest problem wasn't a curse? What if it was your most important assignment? The Stoic approach starts with perception, with changing how you see things. They called it the view from above. You see the situation not from inside your own feelings, but from a distance. You imagine rising up, looking down on your life from a high place. That problem, the argument, the bill, it doesn't disappear, but it gets smaller. It finds its actual size inside the whole span of your life, or inside history, even inside the scale of the universe. Marcus Aurelius did this. He'd think about time, how many empires have come and gone, how many people have had their own troubles, all of them gone now. Against that, our current problems lose that heavy, singular weight. They become part of a much bigger story. Take a work conflict. It feels huge right now. It fills your mind. Now try the view. See yourself a year from now. Will this argument matter? See your office from way up high, just a dot. See your century, just a short piece of history. The emotion fades, not because the problem isn't real, but because you've seen its true, limited size. The obstacle is still there to handle, but now you see it clearly without the panic. So pick a worry, one that feels heavy, and zoom out on it. See it from next week, from next year, from the stars. That shift in seeing is the first step. Because you can't turn an obstacle into an advantage if you're still stuck inside it. The most frustrating part of a problem often isn't the problem itself. It's the time you spend wrestling with things you can't change. The Stoics have a tool for that, a filter for any obstacle. They called it the Dichotomy of Control. Epictetus starts his manual with it. He says some things are up to us and some things are not. Our opinions, our impulses, our desires, our actions. Those are up to us. Everything else is not. Our body, our possessions, our reputation, what other people think and do, that's not up to us. It sounds simple. But it's a revolutionary act. You take a problem and split it in 2. There's the external event, the thing that happened, and then there's your judgment of it. Your response, the event itself isn't in your full control, but your response is. That's your territory. Take a promotion you didn't get. You worked hard, but it went to someone else. The outcome, the manager's decision, that's outside your control. It already happened. To spend energy raging against that decision, replaying the unfairness, that's fighting a ghost. You're trying to control what isn't yours. It's exhausting. It gets you nowhere. Now apply the filter. What was within your control, your preparation for that role. Your effort, your skill development, that was yours, and now your response, your choice to learn from it, to ask for feedback, to decide your next move. To maintain your professionalism, that is entirely within your circle. The obstacle, the missed promotion, is still there, but you've transformed it. You stop wasting force on the immovable rock. You channel your power into the one thing that matters, your own action. The frustration drains away because you're no longer fighting the universe. You're working with the materials you actually have, so think of a recent setback, anything that's been bothering you. Apply the dichotomy, separate it. What part was truly outside my control? Acknowledge it, let it go. What part is within my control, especially my reaction right now? That's where your power lies. That's how an obstacle becomes a training ground. The Stoics say it's not the obstacle that upsets us, it's our judgment of the obstacle. there's this small space between something happening and how you feel about it. And that space is where you choose. Epictetus called it proherses, your faculty of judgment. It's how you take an impression from the world and decide what it means. An impression arrives, the car breaks down, a project is cancelled, someone says something harsh, that's just the raw event. Then your mind immediately puts a label on it. Disaster, injustice, a personal attack, and that label, that judgment, is what creates the turmoil, not the event itself. The obstacle is neutral until you give it a story. And you can rewrite that story. This is cognitive reframing, the art of impression. You notice the automatic label and you consciously pick a different one. You're not denying reality. The car is still broken, but you change the meaning. Instead of "this is a disaster," you think, "this is a test of patience." Or "this is a puzzle to solve." The Stoics were experts at this. They saw hardship as training. A difficult person wasn't a nuisance. They were a sparring partner for your character. The goal wasn't to pretend it felt good. It was to see its utility, to ask what this situation could develop in you that an easy situation could not. Take a travel delay. Your flight is grounded for hours. The first impression says waste of time, ruined plans, stress. That judgment creates anger and helplessness. Now apply the reframe. This isn't a waste of time. This is unexpected, gifted time. Time you would never have scheduled for yourself. It's an opportunity for reflection you didn't know you needed. A chance to read, to observe, to be still. The external fact, the grounded plane, hasn't changed, but your internal world has transformed from a prison of frustration to a space of potential. The obstacle becomes the container for a different kind of progress. This is how you turn the raw material of difficulty into the substance of your character. You are the author of the meaning, so here's a practical question. What's one negative label you're putting on a challenge right now? Is it a failure? A catastrophe, a sign you're not good enough? Can you, just for a moment, choose a different label? Could it be a lesson, a necessary redirect, just a difficult task, not a verdict on your worth? The event stays the same, but the path through it changes, and the person you become on that path changes completely. This reframing is the final, internal move. It locks the obstacle into place as your advantage. It means you're not just enduring what happens to you, you're actively using it. They practiced inviting hardship, which is a startling idea. They didn't just wait for obstacles to find them. They went out and found obstacles first. They called it voluntary discomfort. That's the proactive piece. You immunize yourself against future shocks by giving yourself a small, controlled dose of the difficulty now, like a vaccine for your peace of mind. You build a callus where life might otherwise strike a raw nerve. Seneca wrote about this. He would, for a few days at a time, practice poverty, wear his roughest clothes, eat the plainest food, sleep on a hard bed. He wasn't punishing himself, he was asking a question: is this so bad? And in answering no, he was doing two things: strengthening his resilience muscle and rediscovering the comfort in his ordinary life. The philosopher Cato was known for this too. He lived simply by choice, even with wealth and status. He wanted his happiness to be independent of external conditions. So when real hardship came, as it inevitably does, it wasn't a terrifying stranger. It was a familiar, manageable challenge. The sting was gone. Now, what does this look like today? It's not about seeking out misery. It's the small, deliberate choice for the slightly harder path. Taking a cold shower for the last 30 seconds, walking instead of driving for a short errand, fasting from social media for a day, or from complaining for an afternoon. Choosing to have a difficult but necessary conversation you've been avoiding. In each case, you're not just enduring an inconvenience, you're sending a message to your deepest self. You are saying, I am tougher than this. My well-being does not depend on perfect comfort. You prove it to yourself in a tiny, safe arena. Then, when a real storm hits a financial pinch, a personal loss, a setback. You have a reference point. You know you have handled discomfort before by choice. You know you can handle it again when it comes by necessity. That knowledge is an advantage. It turns anxiety into a kind of preparedness. So here is a challenge. This week, choose one small, voluntary discomfort. Just one. Make it something simple and safe, but something you would normally avoid. Waking up 30 minutes earlier, drinking only water with a meal, taking the stairs. Do it not as a punishment, but as an experiment. Notice what happens inside you. Notice the space that opens up when you realize the minor thing you feared has no power over you. That small act of choosing the harder path is you, actively forging your own advantage from the raw material of daily life. There's this principle that sounds like a paradox until you live it. The obstacle is the way. It's ancient Stoic wisdom. It means the thing that's blocking you when you engage with it doesn't just move. It transforms. It becomes the actual route forward. The barrier becomes the bridge. Marcus Aurelius wrote it down in his private notes. He wrote, "The impediment to action advances action." What stands in the way becomes the way. Read that again. The impediment to action advances action. He's not talking about going around. It's a kind of alchemy. You take the resisting force and use its own energy to move you forward. This is the active part. It's not passive acceptance. It's not just reframing your thoughts. It's a call to arms. The obstacle shows up and you say, "Good. This isn't a detour. This is the main road. My goal is on the other side of this specific challenge. So I have to develop the specific strength to move it." The obstacle dictates the training. It shows you what you need to learn, what you need to build, or what you need to let go of. There's a story about an inventor working for years on a new kind of light bulb. The goal was a long-lasting, practical electric light. The obstacle was constant failure, filament after filament burning out too quickly, 1,000 attempts ending in darkness. The easy judgment is to see that as a sign to quit. But the Stoic lens, the obstacle is the way lens, sees it differently. Each failed filament isn't a stop sign. It's a data point. It is the way. It's eliminating a path that doesn't work. It's teaching the inventor about heat, about materials, about vacuum seals. The obstacle of failure becomes the rigorous curriculum. Without those 1,000 dead ends, the final design would never have been found. The impediment was the only possible teacher for that lesson. So bring this down to your level. Look at the specific barrier you're facing right now. Maybe it's a skill gap at work, a communication breakdown in a relationship, a lack of resources for a project. Instead of seeing it as a wall, ask the transformative question. How can this specific barrier point me toward a necessary skill or a new approach I've been avoiding? If it's a skill gap, the obstacle is directing you to study. If it's a communication issue, it's forcing you to practice clarity, to practice listening. If it's a lack of resources, it's demanding creativity. It's demanding resourcefulness. The obstacle isn't hiding the path. It is etching the path onto the ground right in front of you. Your job is to stop looking for a way around and start walking directly through. Amor Fati, it's a phrase from Nietzsche, but the idea is pure Stoicism, love of fate. It's not just acceptance. It's not just enduring something. It's loving it. Seeing every event, the obstacles, the setbacks as necessary, they're ingredients. It's the ultimate reframe. You don't say, "I have to deal with this." You say, "I would have it no other way because this is part of my path." This isn't resignation. It's an active, joyful alignment with reality. You look at the raw material of your life, the smooth and the rough, and you say yes to all of it. Marcus Aurelius lived this. He didn't want to be emperor. He wanted his books, his philosophy, but he accepted the role, with all its burdens, the wars, the plagues, the political intrigue. He saw it as his duty, his material to work with, his fate, and in his writings he's constantly working to love that fate, to find the good in the hardship, to see his position as the perfect training ground. I have an example. Years ago, I was passed over for a job I really wanted. I'd planned my whole career around it. The rejection felt like a door slamming shut. For weeks, it was just a bitter obstacle, but with time, that closed door forced me to look sideways. It pushed me into freelance work I'd never considered. That work led to unexpected connections, and those connections led me to the work I do now. Work that's more fulfilling, more aligned with my purpose than that original job ever could have been. The missed opportunity wasn't a blockade. It was a redirect, a necessary, brutal, perfect redirect. Amor Fati means looking back at that disappointment and feeling gratitude. Not for the pain, for the path it revealed. So try this. Think of one recent event, something unexpected that threw you off course, a plan that fell apart. A change you didn't ask for. Instead of wrestling with the frustration, just for a moment, try on the phrase. Say it quietly. I love my fate. I love my fate regarding this. It might feel strange, false, even. That's okay. You're not saying the event was good. You're practicing the stance that it's woven into your story, and your story is still being written. That mental affirmation begins to drain the resistance. It lets you engage with the situation not as an enemy, but as a guide, a peculiar kind of guide. When you can look at an obstacle and feel, deep down, that it belongs in your journey, you've unlocked the final piece. You're no longer at war with reality. You're in partnership with it, building your advantage from everything it provides. There's one more part to this. It's called Premeditatio Malorum, the premeditation of evils. And it's not pessimism, it's not expecting the worst, it's a kind of strategic inoculation. You deliberately imagine what could go wrong. You do it calmly. Not to scare yourself, to disarm the fear. You visualize the setback in detail. So if it ever happens, it's familiar. It's not a terrifying stranger. You take away its greatest weapon, which is surprise. Seneca practiced this. He would set aside time. He'd mentally rehearse poverty, exile, even the loss of his own life. He wasn't wallowing in dread. He was asking himself a question. Is this so bad? And in answering, he found something. The anticipation of the event was almost always worse than the event itself. By walking through it in his mind, he stripped it of its emotional power. He also planned his response. He wasn't just imagining the loss. He was imagining his own calm reaction to it. He was preparing his character. Take a public speaker. The standard approach is to visualize everything going perfectly. The smooth delivery, the engaged audience. The applause, that's fine, but the Stoic adds another layer. They also visualize the projector failing, the slide deck refusing to load, a tough question from a skeptic in the front row. And then, in their mind, they practice their response. They see themselves smiling, acknowledging the hiccup, continuing without the slides. They hear themselves thanking the skeptic. Answering with grace. They've already lived through the worst-case scenario in a safe space. So if it happens, there's no panic. There's just the execution of a plan they've already rehearsed. The obstacle loses its ability to derail them. This is how you turn anxiety into a planning session. Fear is often just the unknown. Premeditatio Malorum shines a light into that darkness. It says, okay, let's look at what might be there. And in looking, you realize you can handle it. You might even find a better path, so here's something to try. Think of a project you have coming up, something with a bit of weight, a presentation, a difficult conversation, a creative endeavor. Take 5 minutes. Don't just picture success, deliberately picture one specific thing going wrong. The internet cuts out, the other person gets defensive, your initial idea falls flat. See it clearly, then, and this is the key, write down or mentally outline your calm, practical response. What's the very first thing you would do? How would you adjust? This isn't inviting trouble, it's building an internal contingency plan. You're taking the raw, scary possibility of an obstacle and forging it into a tool. A tool for composure. When you do this, you're not just hoping for the best, you are prepared to make the best out of anything. You see a mountain and it drains you. The Stoic answer is to stop looking at the mountain. Look at your boot, the ground right in front of it. That's the discipline of action. It comes from a simple fact. We can only ever act in the present, not in the past, that's gone, not in the future, it's not here yet, only now. Marcus Aurelius wrote this down. He said, confine yourself to the present. You could live in misery, he said, if you dwell on everything that might go wrong tomorrow. Or you could do this, you could put down the weight of the whole project. The whole problem, then you pick up the single, immediate task, the one right in front of you. That's all you have to do, that's all you can do. Think about writing a book. The finished manuscript is a mountain, 300 pages, it's paralyzing, but a book isn't written all at once, it's written one sentence at a time. The Stoic writer doesn't sit down to write a book, they sit to write one paragraph or one sentence. Their entire world in that moment is the blank page and the next word. The obstacle of the massive project just disappears. It becomes a series of present moment actions. Send the next email, make the next call, read the next page. Clean the next dish. Each one is a victory. Each one is a brick laid in the path. I saw this with a friend. She faced a daunting personal challenge. The situation felt like a tangled knot, too complex to ever unravel. She was stuck in the enormity of it. Then she tried this. She asked one question every morning. What is the one small, physical action I can take today? Not solve everything, just one action. One day it was making a list, another day sending a single, difficult text, another was just going for a walk to clear her head. Each action was tiny, but each one was a movement forward. The mountain didn't move, but she began to walk around it, one step at a time. This is how you dismantle an obstacle. Not with one heroic blow, but with the steady, present-focused work of your hands and your attention. The anxiety about the future, the regret about the past, it all fades when you're fully immersed in the task of now. So bring it to your own challenge right now. Look away from the terrifying hole. Look at the part you can touch. What's the one small, physical action you can take in the next 10 minutes? Can you open a document? Can you draft one sentence? Can you put on your shoes and step outside? That action, no matter how minor, is your point of power. It's you choosing to engage with the obstacle on the only terms that ever matter, the terms of the present moment. Desires can be the most stubborn obstacles. Not that they're wrong, it's that we hold them as rigid demands. The Stoics called this the discipline of desire. It's not about killing what you want. It's about changing its nature. The shift is from a conditional demand to a reserved preference. A conditional desire says, I must have this to be okay. A reserved preference says, I would like this, but my peace doesn't depend on it. When your desire is a rigid condition, any reality that contradicts it becomes a personal offense. A massive obstacle, but when your desire is a soft preference, reality is just reality, and you're free to work with it. Epictetus put it clearly. He said, don't seek to have events happen as you wish. Wish them to happen as they do happen, and your life will go well. At first, that sounds like giving up. It's not. It's about aligning your internal world with the external world. So you're no longer at war with what is. You conserve your energy for action, not for complaint. Think of planning an outdoor event. You deeply desire a sunny day. You check the forecast all week. You build your entire vision around perfect weather. That's a conditional desire. Your happiness is hostage to the clouds. Then the day arrives and it rains. The obstacle isn't just the rain, it's the shattering of your conditional demand. You feel defeated before you even begin. Now apply the discipline. You prefer a sunny day. You plan for it, but you hold that preference lightly. You make a backup plan. You tell yourself, my goal is a meaningful gathering, not a specific weather pattern. The rain comes, it's not a catastrophe, it's a different set of conditions. You move the gathering or you embrace the coziness of being indoors. Your peace was never outsourced to the sky. The obstacle of bad weather evaporates because it was never an obstacle to your core aim, only to a rigid, conditional wish. This applies everywhere. Desiring a specific outcome in a negotiation, craving a particular reaction from another person, needing a project to unfold exactly as you envisioned. Each of these, when held as a must, turns the universe into a potential adversary. Every deviation feels like a personal failure or an unfair block. So here's a quiet exercise. Look at your life right now. Identify one conditional desire, one thing you're telling yourself you must have for your day, or your week, or your sense of self to be okay. Is it a certain level of productivity, a particular response from a family member, a specific metric of success? Now practice softening it. Change the language in your mind. I would prefer this, but if it does not happen, I will be okay. I will adapt. I will find a different path forward. This isn't lowering your standards. It's raising your resilience. You take back the power you gave to an unpredictable world, and you place it firmly within your own character. When your desires are reserved rather than conditional, you stop creating so many of your own obstacles. You begin to see reality not as something to conquer, but as a partner in your growth. The rain is just rain, and you are the one who decides what to build with it. The strongest reaction can be a profound stillness. You're faced with a provocation, an insult, a personal attack. The immediate impulse is to push back, to defend, to counterpunch. The Stoics proposed a different art, a far more difficult one, the art of the non-reaction. They called it turning the other cheek, but this wasn't about submission. It wasn't weakness, it was a strategic choice, a deliberate choice to deny the obstacle the one thing it needed to live: your emotional energy, your outrage. Your engagement. Without that fuel, the insult withers, the aggression stumbles into empty air. You maintain an inner citadel, and the obstacle, baffled, just passes you by. Socrates was a master of this. His wife, Xanthippe, was known for her sharp temper. In one story, she became upset. She poured a bucket of water over his head in public. A profound humiliation, a direct assault on his dignity. Socrates' response was to simply wipe his face. He remarked to those around him, "I knew such thunder would bring rain." He didn't retaliate. He didn't lecture her in the moment. He didn't allow her action to dictate his own emotional state. By refusing to play the expected role, the angry, shamed husband, he disarmed the situation completely. The intended obstacle to provoke him, to drag him into conflict, it failed utterly. His calm was an impenetrable shield. Marcus Aurelius practiced this daily. Not with a spouse, but with the annoyances of leading an empire, dealing with difficult people. He wrote reminders to himself. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. He didn't write this to stoke resentment. He wrote it to prepare his own non-reaction. By preemptively accepting that others would act from their own flaws, he could meet their behavior with understanding, or with a calm refusal to be drawn into their chaos. The obstacle of another person's poor character remained their problem, not his. So how does this look now, where the bucket of water is a hostile email or a cutting remark in a meeting? The principle is the same. The most powerful action is often a pause, a deliberate, strategic inaction. Imagine you receive a message. It's accusatory. It's unfair. It's designed to get a rise out of you. Your fingers itch to type a fiery defense, a sarcastic retort. That is the expected fuel. That is what the obstacle wants. Now enact the Stoic pause. Do not send a reply, not yet. Close the email, walk away for an hour or until the next day. Let the initial heat dissipate. When you return, your goal isn't to win an argument. It isn't to vent your feelings. Your goal is to maintain your own peace. to control the only thing you truly can, your response. Craft a reply that is factual, measured, devoid of emotional charge. Address any legitimate points with clarity. Ignore the provocation entirely. Thank them for their feedback. Suggest a calm discussion if needed. You've just performed a kind of jiu-jitsu. You use the force of their aggression not to meet it head-on, but to step aside, leaving them off balance. You deprived the obstacle of its power by refusing to acknowledge it as an obstacle to your equilibrium. This isn't being a doormat, it is being a fortress. It is choosing the battlefield, and the battlefield is always your own mind. So here is a question. Where in your life right now might withholding your immediate gut reaction be the stronger move, the more strategic move? Is it in a simmering family tension? A social media thread, a friction with a colleague? The next time that spark of irritation flares, see if you can let it burn out on its own, without adding your breath to the flame. In that quiet space of non-reaction, you might find a clarity, a power you never knew you had. There is a fortress nothing outside can ever break into. The Stoics had a name for it, the inner citadel, and it's not a location. It's a condition, a kind of core self built from your values, your reason, your commitment to virtue. When that inner space is solid, what happens outside it becomes like weather. It might be a storm, but it can't shake the mountain. That's the whole point of the Stoic design. To build something inside you that no obstacle can actually touch. Marcus Aurelius kept coming back to this. In his private notes, he talked about retreating into himself. He wrote that you have power over your mind, not outside events. See that, and you find strength. That retreat, it wasn't running from reality. It was going back to the only ground that was really his. His character, his judgment, his intention. From that secure place, he could face the chaos of the empire, the weight of leadership, the pain in his own body. Without being swallowed by it, the obstacle was still an obstacle, but it couldn't become a crisis about his existence. It was a task for his hands, not a verdict on his soul. You see this in people who faced immense external hardship. Nelson Mandela, 27 years, his physical freedom was gone. The external conditions were total confinement. But by most accounts, he built an unbreakable inner world. He focused on his principles, his purpose, his dignity. He studied, he reasoned with the gods. He kept his integrity. The prison walls were real, but they couldn't imprison his mind or his spirit. His inner citadel held, and from that unshakable place, he eventually walked out to lead a nation. The external obstacle of prison didn't damage his core. It showed how strong it was. Your own inner citadel gets built brick by brick through the daily practices. The discipline of perception lets you see events clearly without the panic. The dichotomy of control shows you where your real territory is. Reframing your judgments changes what the hardship means. Each of those acts is you, laying another stone in your own fortress. The goal isn't to go numb or to detach from life. It's to become so secure in who you are that you can engage with life completely, without the fear that it will break you. So here's something to consider. Look inward for a moment. What are the 3 qualities that make the unshakable foundation of your character? Maybe it's your honesty, your courage to try again, your compassion. It could be your curiosity, your perseverance, your sense of justice. Name them. Write them down. Those are the pillars of your citadel. When an external storm hits, a failure, criticism, a loss, you can retreat to that list. You can ask, does this take away my honesty? Does it remove my capacity for courage? It can't. Those qualities are yours to use, no matter the weather outside. By knowing what is truly yours, you make everything else just a circumstance. Something to navigate. The universe is woven together. That's the Stoic idea of sympathetic interconnectedness. Everything in the cosmos, from the stars to stones to our own struggles, is part of one living fabric. Nothing happens in isolation. An obstacle isn't random. It's a thread pulled in one part of the pattern, and it affects the whole. That changes everything. Because when you see your difficulty as part of a vast, rational order, it stops feeling like a personal attack. The sting of victimhood fades. You're not being singled out. You're participating in something much larger. The Stoics based this on their view of the cosmos, which they called the logos, a rational, ordering principle. Marcus Aurelius saw the universe as a single living being with one substance and one soul. He wrote that what doesn't benefit the whole hive doesn't benefit the single bee. Your life is that bee, and the hive is everything, so when an obstacle appears, it's not a flaw in the design. It is the design. It's the universe in its intelligence, presenting you with the exact material your character needs to contribute. This isn't mystical, it's a practical shift from seeing your life as a solo journey against a hostile world to seeing it as part of a moving, breathing system. Take a career setback. You're laid off from a job you loved. The immediate story is loss, rejection, a future derailed. It feels like a tear in your fabric. Now apply sympathy. Zoom out. See this not as an isolated catastrophe, but as a node in a vast web. That job ending created a space. It sent a ripple through the network of your life. That ripple forced you to reach out in new directions. It made you available for a conversation you would have missed. It pushed a different opportunity toward you. The person you meet months later, the project that suddenly makes sense, the skill you develop out of necessity, these were always possible. But they required that specific break in the pattern to become visible. The obstacle wasn't a punishment. It was a necessary redirection in the web, guiding you, and through you, the whole toward a different alignment. So here's a question. Look back not at a current struggle, but at one that's firmly in the past, a difficulty that felt overwhelming at the time. Can you trace a single, unexpected connection that came from it? Did losing that one path introduce you to a person who changed your perspective? Did a period of limitation force you to develop a creativity that now defines your work? That connection is sympathy in action. It's the universe weaving its pattern with all threads, especially the rough ones. When you can see that, even in hindsight, you begin to trust the process. You begin to meet new obstacles not with dread, but with a quiet curiosity. You wonder not why is this happening to me, but what is this connected to? What larger pattern is this inviting me to join? The obstacle becomes your point of contact with the living whole, and your response becomes your contribution. Gratitude is really a form of preparedness. Negative visualization isn't about fear, it's about appreciation. You imagine life without something you have. Not to create anxiety, but to remove it, to see the gift before it's gone. This makes ordinary life feel like a constant receiving. Seneca put it clearly. He said we should love what we have, but always remember we have no promise to keep it. Fortune has only lent these things to us. That idea is freeing. When you see your possessions, your position, even your relationships as loans, two things change. Your hold on them loosens and your thankfulness for them grows. You don't take them for granted anymore. The possible loss loses its power because in your mind you've already given it back. The practice is simple. You find a quiet moment, you think of something you value, your health, your home, someone you love, then for a minute you picture life without it. Not with scary detail, just a sober sense of it being absent. You feel that empty space, and then you open your eyes or just come back to the present. The thing is still there, your health, your home, that person, but now you see it differently. The ordinary becomes extraordinary. The background comfort moves to the front. Think of a common goodbye at an airport, a train station. The usual move is a quick hug, a wave, your mind already on the next thing. The Stoic way is different. In that moment of parting, you allow one conscious thought. This could be the last time. It's not morbid. It's honoring the fragility of the connection. It makes the goodbye sincere, the look real. And then, when you meet again, that reunion isn't just routine. It's a small miracle. You appreciate their presence in a way you wouldn't if you assumed it was guaranteed. The obstacle of potential loss is disarmed by your prior acceptance. What's left is gratitude without the burden. You build a sense of contentment not by getting more, but by fully seeing what you already have. The fear of things being taken away shrinks because you've already visited that reality in a controlled way. You've made peace with the natural flow where things come and go. So here's an invitation. Pause for 60 seconds. Think of one thing: your eyesight, the warm cup in your hand, your ability to walk, the quiet in your room. Close your eyes if you want. Picture your world without it, not forever, just for a day. Feel that absence, then open your eyes. Let your senses come back to the reality that it's here now. That shift from imagined lack to actual presence is a realignment. It turns an ordinary moment into a kind of sanctuary, and it means no future obstacle can steal the value you've already consciously claimed. The Stoic isn't just trying to get past something, they're trying to act well while they face it. That's the shift. The goal isn't just to move the obstacle. It's to use the obstacle as a place to practice who you are, and the guide for that is the 4 virtues: wisdom, courage, justice, temperance. These aren't just concepts. They're the compass for every single thing you do. The Stoics had this radical idea: that virtue is the only real good, not money, not reputation, not ease. Only a good character, and the only real bad is vice, a corrupted character. Everything else, the problem, the setback, the pain, it's all indifferent. It's just material, so the real advantage you get from a hardship isn't the external reward you might win. It's the internal quality you build by acting rightly. The obstacle is the anvil. Your virtues are the hammer and the metal. You're shaping your own soul. Take a hard business situation. A competitor begins spreading lies about your company to take clients. The gut reaction is to fight fire with fire, to start your own smear campaign, to win no matter what. That action might remove the competitor as an obstacle, but it would fail the virtue test. A Stoic response would run every possible action through that filter of the 4 virtues. First, wisdom. What's the truthful assessment here? What are the facts without the anger? Second, justice. What's fair, not just for me, but for my employees, my clients, even the market itself? A just action might be to calmly correct the record with evidence, not attacks. Third, courage. Do I have the bravery to take the higher road, even if it seems slower, to risk a short-term loss for long-term integrity? And fourth, temperance. Can I show restraint? Can I choose not to escalate, to keep my actions measured? The action that comes from this might not crush the competitor quickly, but it will build something unshakable inside you and your organization. Your reputation gets rooted in integrity, not in rivalry. Trust builds, and you sleep at night knowing your success wasn't built on the very behavior you hated. The obstacle of unethical competition became the exact training ground for justice and temperance. You gained a stronger character. That's the real victory. So bring this to your own situation. Look at the challenge right in front of you and ask this compound question. What would a response look like that is both courageous and just? Courage alone could be a blunt force. Justice alone might be passive, but courage tempered by justice, that's powerful, directed action. It means standing up for what's right in the right way. It means defending a boundary without malice. It means speaking a hard truth with respect. Defining your action by these virtues changes the whole engagement. You're not just solving a problem, you're answering a deeper call. The obstacle becomes your curriculum for living well, and with each virtuous response, you claim the only advantage that can never be taken from you. A person gets hit by an arrow, that's the first one. It's just the physical fact, the impact, it hurts, but then there's a second arrow, and this one you shoot yourself. Your own mind fires it. It's the reaction, the outrage about being hit, the fear of what it means, the story you start telling about how unfair it is. That second arrow, it multiplies everything. The first arrow is whatever happens out there, the obstacle. The second arrow is everything you add to it. Your emotional reaction, your narrative. The Stoic idea is to never fire that second arrow. You take the first one, you feel it, but you refuse to make it worse with your own thinking. There's this practice, the discipline of ascent. It's about catching that second arrow before it even leaves the bow. An impression comes in, that's the first arrow hitting, and you have this instant to either agree or disagree with the judgment that follows. The judgment that says this is terrible, this is unbearable, this ruins everything. That judgment is you loading the second arrow, so the practice is to see the impression. Feel the sensation and then pause to say, this is painful, but it's not a catastrophe unless I call it one. The extra suffering is optional. Take physical pain. A bad back, the ache, the limitation, that's the first arrow. It's real, it's a signal. The second arrow is all the rest, the frustration that asks, why me? The anxiety that imagines a future ruled by this pain. The story that says a full life isn't possible now. The first arrow you might have to manage. The second arrow, you're the one shooting it, over and over with your thoughts. The work is to drop that arrow, to feel the ache without the layer of mental rebellion. To ask, what can I do within this? How do I live well with this as part of the landscape? The first arrow is the condition. The second is the complaint about the condition. And the complaint is more exhausting than the condition itself. Then move that from physical to psychological. A critical email from a client, the content, the facts, even the unfair tone, that's the first arrow. It landed, your heart might race, that's just physiology, the impact. But then the second arrow, the internal monologue, they hate my work, I'm a fraud. My career is over, I need to fire back an angry defense right now. That narrative, that spiral, that's you loading a whole quiver of second arrows into your own piece. The Stoic move is to feel the initial sting and then stop, to separate the event from the drama, to see the email as data, a problem to solve maybe. But not a verdict on your worth. You address the content if you need to, you correct mistakes, you don't address the drama, you leave the second arrow on the ground. So here's a question. Look at a difficulty you're facing. Could be small, a delayed train, a messy house, a tense conversation just hanging there. Identify the first arrow. The plain fact of it. Then identify the second arrow you're firing. What's the story you're telling that makes it heavier? What emotional charge are you adding? Is it a story of injustice, of doom, of personal failure? Just for today, try to take the impact of the first arrow and then consciously, deliberately lay the second one down. Don't pick it up, don't knock it, let the event just be the event. In that space between the impact and your reaction, there's a freedom, and no external obstacle can take that away. A journal is really a kind of laboratory where you take the blueprint and make it real. It's not for writing down what happened, it's for taking things apart. The Stoics had a name for this, the evening reflection, meditatio, a quiet review of the day. You take the raw material, the conflicts, the frustrations, and you run it through the principles. You turn obstacles into data for your own development. Without this, the ideas stay theoretical. The journal is where you forge them into instinct. Marcus Aurelius left the ultimate example. His book, Meditations, it was never meant to be published. It was his private journal, written mostly at night, probably by candlelight during hard military campaigns. In those pages, he wasn't writing for an audience. He was arguing with himself, reminding himself of what he believed, scolding his own anger, noting a moment of restraint. He used the page as a mirror to see his own character clearly and to correct it. His journal was the workshop where he built that inner citadel, one nightly session at a time. The practice is simple, but the effect is deep. It creates a loop between your ideals and your actions. Here's a format you can use. It takes about 5 minutes. Ask 3 questions. First, what was the main challenge today? Be specific. It could be external, a difficult talk, or internal, a wave of anxiety. Second, how did I respond? Did I use a principle, the dichotomy of control or reframing, or did I fire the second arrow, get lost in complaint? Be honest. This is observation, not judgment. Third, based on that, what's one small adjustment for tomorrow? Not a grand overhaul, one actionable thing. Maybe tomorrow I'll pause for 3 breaths before I reply. Or I'll look for one chance to practice voluntary discomfort. This nightly review does something. It takes the chaos of the day and gives it structure. It turns random happenings into a curriculum for your growth. The obstacle you write about today becomes the lesson you carry into tomorrow. You stop repeating the same reactions. You start building a record of conscious choice. So here's an invitation. Before this day ends, find a notebook or a note on your phone. Give yourself 5 quiet minutes. Ask those 3 questions. What challenged me? How did I meet it? What one thing can I adjust? When you do that, you're not just recording your life. You're drafting the next version of yourself, a wiser one. The journal is the quiet engine of the Stoic life, where every obstacle, once it's processed, becomes a permanent advantage. You're not the first person to run into something like this. The Stoics' new philosophy isn't something you do by yourself. It's more like a conversation that stretches across time. They looked for guides, not as distant figures to worship, but as companions in their thinking. They called that an exemplar. When something difficult came up, they wouldn't just ask themselves what to do. They'd ask, what would Socrates do right here? How would Cato handle this kind of unfairness? It was a way to borrow some strength, to find a pattern for action in how people before them had lived. Seneca's letters to his friend Lucilius show this. He wasn't just giving advice from a distance. He was modeling it through his writing, offering Lucilius a kind of steady hand to hold in his mind. He was saying, walk alongside me in your thoughts and see how I face this fear, this frustration. That practice turns history into a counsel you can call on whenever you need. Think about a moment that asks for a lot of patience. You're stuck in a slow line or waiting on news, and you can feel the irritation building. Instead of just sitting there annoyed, you can bring to mind someone known for deep calm. Maybe the Dalai Lama or a mentor you've known who stays steady. You ask yourself mentally, how would they stand here? They'd probably see it as time to observe, to breathe, to smile quietly at how impatient the world can be. That small shift in thinking doesn't just make the time pass. It turns the whole moment into a little training session in virtue. Or take a conversation you're dreading, one where you need courage to say something difficult. Before you go in, you might think of someone from history known for courage on principle. Martin Luther King Jr. speaking with conviction, or Rosa Parks sitting with resolve. You're not them, and your situation isn't the same. But asking what they would do lets some of that spirit of dignified action flow into yours. It lifts you out of your own nervousness and connects you to a bigger story about standing up for what's right. This week, pick one guide. It could be a philosopher like Epictetus, a historical leader, a fictional character with strong principles, or even a wise family member. Keep them in mind. When you hit a snag, a moment of doubt or frustration, pause and consult them. Put your problem to them in your thoughts. What would they see that I'm missing? How would they frame this challenge? Their imagined advice becomes a compass, pointing you back toward your own best self. You're not facing the obstacle alone anymore. You have the accumulated wisdom of the ages standing there with you. There's one last practice that holds all the others in place. Remember, you will die. It sounds severe, but for the Stoics, this was the ultimate clarity. It's not about fixating on an end. It's about clarifying everything that leads up to it. Knowing our time is finite works like a filter. The small frustrations, the ego battles, the daily noise, they start to look exactly like what they are. Small, temporary, and the meaningful work, the real connections, the virtues we try to live by, they come into sharp focus. it creates a kind of urgent, loving attention. Marcus Aurelius would write to himself each morning. He'd say he would meet interfering and ungrateful people, but he'd also remind himself that soon he'd be gone, and they'd be gone, and all of it would be forgotten. That wasn't a sad thought for him, it was freeing. It meant the obstacle of someone's rude remark today carried no lasting weight. Seneca said it another way. He said we should balance life's account each day as if any day could be the last. The idea is to live not as if you have endless time, but as if your time is precious because it's limited. That view changes how you meet a challenge. Take a common modern obstacle, a conflict over a project deadline. Two teams arguing over timelines, resources, who gets credit. The tension feels huge, all-consuming. Now put the lens of Memento Mori over it. Look at that same conflict from the perspective of your final day. From that far point looking back, does winning that argument matter? Or does acting with integrity, building a good collaboration, making something of quality, does that matter more? The finite view doesn't make the deadline vanish. It just shows you what the real stakes are. It strips away the pretense, the posturing, and asks you to act on what's essential right now. The obstacle becomes a chance to practice courage in how you communicate, or justice in how you share credit, with a new kind of calm urgency. You act not because you have forever, but because you don't. To build this, find a subtle, personal reminder, a simple stone on your desk, a particular watch you wear. A phrase on your screensaver, not a symbol of fear, but a touchstone for focus. Each time you see it, let it ask you a quiet question. Is what I'm doing right now, is how I'm handling this difficulty, worthy of the limited and irreplaceable time I have? That question, more than any other, turns every obstacle into a question of character, and it makes sure the advantage you build isn't just for today, but for the story of a life lived well. Every plan is an agreement with reality, and the Stoics added a footnote to that agreement. They called it the reserve clause, hypexerces. It means adding fate permitting to every intention. I'll finish this project by Friday, fate permitting. I'll meet you for lunch if nothing prevents me. This isn't about doubt, it's about building acceptance right into the effort. The teacher Chrysippus talked about events being confined. Our control is limited, conditional. The reserve clause honors that confinement from the start. It separates your action from your attachment to the result. Your action is yours. The result belongs to the world of cause and effect. When you bake this into planning, you stop a successful outcome from becoming a rigid demand. And if something blocks that outcome, it doesn't feel like a betrayal. It was already part of the deal. The sting of surprise is neutralized before it forms. Think of planning a beach day. You pack the cooler, you put on sunscreen, you head out. The standard approach holds the plan tight. I will have a sunny, relaxing day. Your happiness is invested in that picture. Then the sky darkens, rain pours, the bad weather doesn't just ruin the plan. It feels like a personal affront. You're angry, disappointed, your mood sours. Now use the reserve clause. Your intention is different from the start. I will go to the beach tomorrow, fate permitting. You still pack the cooler. You still apply the sunscreen, full effort, but your mind has already made peace with the possibility of rain. It's acknowledged that this part isn't yours to command. When the clouds roll in, there's no inner collapse, there's a calm pivot. The obstacle was written into the contract. You close the cooler, you drive home. You find a different way to spend the afternoon. Your peace was never outsourced to the weather. The effort was yours. The outcome was always shared with the world. This turns potential frustration into a simple change of direction. So here's an exercise. Look at your tomorrow. Pick one plan, one intention. It could be a morning workout or a key meeting. Now, in your mind, add the reserve clause to it. Say to yourself, I will do this, fate permitting. Feel how that changes the weight of the expectation. It doesn't reduce your commitment. It just places a boundary around what you can truly control. That mental footnote is a shield against chaos. It lets you act with total dedication while holding the results with an open hand. Anger is a fire. It can burn your house down, or it can forge your strongest tool. When something feels like a personal injustice, that heat comes up. The Stoics didn't say you shouldn't feel it. They gave you a way to turn that blaze into a kind of light. It's transmutation, taking the raw energy of anger and making it a force for virtue. Seneca wrote a whole book on anger. His main advice was simple: delay. When you first feel that flush, grant yourself nothing in that moment. Don't speak. Don't act. That initial surge is a physical wave. It will pass if you don't feed it with your judgment. In that pause, you do an analysis. You ask, what's the judgment underneath this heat? Usually it's a story about unfairness, a perceived slight against your worth or your effort. Your mind has labeled the event as an injustice you have to fight. Seneca says to interrogate that label. Is this really an injustice, or is it just an inconvenience? Is this person acting from malice or from their own ignorance, their own pain? Reason, applied to the fuel of anger, starts to cool it into something you can use. The energy doesn't vanish, it gets aimed. Instead of powering a shouting match or a brooding resentment, it powers preparation. It fuels a clear-eyed solution. Think of that scenario with a colleague. They present a team idea as solely their own in a big meeting. The first wave is pure fire. Betrayal, humiliation, outrage. The untrained reaction is to confront them angrily in the hallway, to complain to others, to seethe. That burns bridges and leaves you with ashes. Now apply the Stoic method. You feel the heat, you pause, you leave the room, you take a walk, you analyze the judgment. The story is, they stole my credit and made me look incompetent. Reason asks, is my competence really defined by one moment of another person's poor character? The goal shifts from punishing them to protecting the project and your own integrity. The anger's energy, now cooled and focused, becomes fuel for a different action. You spend that afternoon documenting your contributions, emails, drafts, meeting notes. You schedule a private talk. You enter not with accusation but with facts. You say, I noticed my contributions weren't highlighted. For the project's success and our team's clarity, here is a record of my work. I'd like to ensure we're aligned. The fire didn't disappear. It forged the evidence. It forged the courage for a calm, just conversation. The obstacle of betrayal became the fuel for impeccable professionalism. So look back at your own week. Find one spark of anger, the rude driver, the dismissive comment, the broken promise. Revisit that moment and ask, what judgment was I making? What story of unfairness was I telling? Now, think of one constructive action that same energy could have powered. Could the frustration at traffic have been redirected into planning a more peaceful morning routine? Could the irritation at a messy kitchen have fueled a focused 10-minute cleanup? Anger is not the enemy, it's a signal, and it's a tremendous source of power. Your choice is whether to let it explode or to forge it into a tool that builds something better. How you'll remember this on your deathbed, that question, it's a lens. You look through it and the world changes shape. This is the view from the end. You project your awareness forward to the last moments of your life, and then you look back. From that final point, you can see what actually mattered. The daily frustrations, the ego battles, the temporary setbacks, they shrink to their proper size. And the moments of courage, integrity, kindness, those shine. This isn't about morbidity, it's about clarity. It's a way to align what you do now with the legacy you want to leave. Marcus Aurelius returned to this. He wrote about the briefness of life, how all of us will soon be laid to rest, forgotten, our dramas turned to dust. He wasn't saying nothing matters, he was defining what matters. From the perspective of eternity, the only thing that endures is the quality of your character. The virtue you chose when things were difficult, The view from the end asks you to judge your current challenge not by how it feels today, but by how it will look from the finish line. Take a stressful financial setback, an unexpected bill, a lost investment, a job that ends. In the moment, it feels all-consuming. It triggers fear about security, anxiety about the future, maybe shame. The obstacle feels massive. Now apply the view from the end. Project yourself to your final days. Looking back over the whole arc of your life, will this specific financial hiccup even be a distinct memory? Or will it blur into the background of 1,000 other challenges you faced and navigated? More importantly, from that future point, what will you be proud of? Will you be proud of how you panicked, or will you be proud of how you met the difficulty with resourcefulness? How you tightened your budget with discipline, how you reached out for help with humility, how you used the pressure to learn a new skill. The event itself might be a forgotten blip. But the character you built by responding well, that becomes a permanent part of your story. The obstacle's true significance is determined entirely by what you make of it. So here's a quiet exercise. Think of the main challenge occupying your mind right now. The one that feels heavy and present. Take out a piece of paper or open a note on your phone. Write a single sentence in the voice of your future self, looking back from a place of peace and completion. Let it begin with the words, "I remember when." And then complete it not with the problem but with your response. "I remember when I faced that difficulty and I chose to meet it with patience." Or, "I remember when that door closed and I found the courage to knock on a new one." That sentence, written from the end, is a compass. It points you toward the action that turns a present obstacle into a future point of pride. It reminds you that you are always writing the memory you will one day have. Make it a good one. The cost of a goal is hidden in the effort. Some obstacles aren't random. They're just the price of admission. The Stoics saw this as cause and effect. Every path has its terrain. If you choose to climb a mountain, you accept the strain in your legs, the thin air. That's not a punishment. It's the inherent condition of the endeavor. When you see difficulty that way, you remove the sting of unfairness. The obstacle becomes part of the process. It's not a blockade. It's a mile marker. It confirms you're on the chosen road, an entrepreneur launching a venture. The necessary trouble of that path includes long hours, financial uncertainty, the risk of rejection. These aren't signs the universe is against them. They're the direct, natural consequences of trying to build something from nothing. To resent these hardships would be like a farmer resenting the need to plant seeds. The fatigue, the doubt, the setbacks, they are part of the soil. Accepting them as necessary changes everything. It turns anxiety into preparedness. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" You start noting this is what happens when you do this work. This applies anywhere you aim for something meaningful. The necessary trouble of physical training is muscle soreness. The necessary trouble of learning a new skill is the frustration of being a beginner. The necessary trouble of a deep relationship is the vulnerability of honest communication. When you expect these costs, you welcome them as proof of engagement. They lose their power to demoralize you. You see them for what they are, the receipt for your ambition. So here's a quiet question. What necessary trouble are you avoiding or resenting that might actually be a sign you're on the right path? Is it the exhaustion of a diligent work routine? The discomfort of saving money instead of spending it? The awkwardness of practicing a new language? Look at that difficulty not as an enemy, but as the toll booth on the road you chose to travel. Paying that toll isn't a setback, it's how you move forward. Stephen Covey took this old idea and gave it a modern form. He called it the circle of concern and the circle of influence. Your circle of concern is huge. It's everything you care about or worry about. The economy, politics, what people think, the traffic, the weather. It's a big circle. And inside it, there's a smaller circle, That's your circle of influence. That's only the things you can actually affect. Your own behavior, your effort, your attitude, the choices you make each day. The Stoic parallel is exact. Your circle of influence is what's up to us. The circle of concern is everything else. And the key move is simple, but it's deep. You stop pouring energy into that big outer circle where nothing you do really changes anything, and you focus all your power on the smaller, inner circle where your actions actually matter. That's how the dichotomy of control becomes a strategy. It's not passive, it's active concentration. You look at the world, you see the one spot you can actually push on, and you put your shoulder there. Everything else, you acknowledge it, but you don't fight it. You let it be part of the landscape. Take a common worry, worrying about a recession. That's a classic circle of concern item. You can read the headlines, watch the markets, feel that knot in your stomach. But can you, by worrying, stop a recession? No, that circle is too big. Your influence there is zero, so that energy is just wasted. It's heat with no light. Now shift the focus inward. What's inside your circle of influence for your own economic resilience? You can learn a new skill, something marketable. You can build an emergency fund, even a small one. You can review your budget, cut what you don't need, look for another income stream. These are actions. They're small, but they're real. They're levers you can actually pull. The obstacle of economic fear doesn't go away, but it changes. From a looming cloud into a list of concrete tasks, you're not just a victim of the weather anymore. You're building a sturdier shelter. This is the Stoic alignment. Your virtue, your character, is built entirely inside your circle of influence. Your courage is in the action of learning a new skill, even though you're afraid. Your temperance is in the choice to save instead of spend. Your wisdom is in seeing where to place your attention. Every act of virtue happens inside that smaller circle. So here's something to try. Take a moment, in your mind or on paper, draw those two circles, a big one and a small one inside. In the big circle, your circle of concern, write down 2 or 3 things weighing on you. Maybe a family member's health, a national election, a project that depends on other people. Now look at that list. For each item, ask this: what part of this, if any, is in my circle of influence? Can I influence the election? Not directly, but can I influence being an informed, respectful person in the process? Yes. Can I control a relative's illness? No, but can I control showing up with kindness, offering help? Just listening? Absolutely. The goal is to take one item, one single worry, and find one tangible action you can take to move it from the outer ring of concern into the inner ring of influence. That action might be tiny: sending a supportive text, spending 30 minutes researching a course, writing 1 paragraph for a proposal you control. That shift from passive worry to directed action, that's the core of it, turning an obstacle into an advantage. You reclaim your agency from the chaos. Epictetus said the philosopher's school was like a hospital. He told his students they shouldn't show up for a nice talk. They were patients there for treatment. And the world is built that way too. The things that block you, they aren't just random hits. They're a specific lesson, a treatment really given to you by reality. To fix a particular weakness, something in your character or in how you see things, that sting of difficulty, it's not there to hurt you, it's there to wake you up. To get you back on course, so you stop asking the victim's question, why is this happening to me? And you start asking the student's question, what is this trying to teach me? And that changes everything. A fight turns into a lesson on how to talk to people. A failure becomes a lesson on getting ready. Losing something becomes a lesson in holding on less tightly. The obstacle itself is the syllabus, and the pain you feel, that's just the sign that you're signed up for a class you need. You have to notice the pattern. If you keep running into the same kind of frustration, say, people keep crossing a line with you, the lesson isn't that everyone is rude. The lesson is probably that you need to learn how to set a limit. A clear one, a kind one, but a firm one. That same obstacle coming back again, that's your teacher, giving you the same assignment over and over until you finally get it right. Your job is to figure out what the subject is, so take whatever you're struggling with right now. Don't describe it as a problem, frame it as a lesson. Start the sentence with, this is teaching me to be more patient when things don't go to plan. This is teaching me to talk more clearly without so much feeling getting in the way. This is teaching me to release my grip on things I can't control. Once you can name the lesson, the obstacle doesn't feel so heavy anymore. It becomes a classroom. And you're not a victim of your circumstances then. You're a student, reading the wisdom that's hidden inside the lash. Your struggle is never just your own. Stoicism was always for the living room, the marketplace, not just the private study. Every obstacle you face, every response you make, it sends a ripple into the community around you. That adds a layer to the blueprint. It's not only about building your own inner citadel, it's about how that fortress can become a shelter for others. The Stoics had a word for this, oikeiosis, the recognition that we're connected, part of a single human cosmopolis. Our duty extends beyond ourselves. When you face a hardship with virtue, you're not just winning a private battle, you're contributing to the common good, you're modeling resilience, you're showing others that dignity is possible even here. This connects to the virtue of justice. Acting justly means considering how your actions affect the whole. It means asking, who else is standing in this storm with me? And how can my response make their burden a little lighter? Consider a modern obstacle, a round of layoffs at your company. The immediate reaction is personal. Fear, anger, a scramble for security. That's natural. The Stoic move is to widen the lens. You see your colleagues also facing uncertainty. You see the managers delivering the news who may be carrying their own weight. Justice asks you to consider them. This doesn't mean you don't feel your own loss or that you shouldn't advocate for yourself. It means you choose to channel your response through a filter of communal care. You can turn the obstacle into communal strength. How? By handling your own exit if it comes with professionalism, completing handover notes, expressing gratitude, refusing to burn bridges in anger. By checking in on a teammate who seems isolated, offering a listening ear, by publicly acknowledging the hard work of those who remain, boosting morale instead of seeding bitterness. Your dignified response becomes a stabilizing force in a chaotic environment. It shows others that character isn't conditional on good fortune. That's a social gift. It turns a personal setback into a lesson in collective integrity for everyone who witnesses it. So here's a prompt to sit with. Look at the main difficulty in front of you right now. Now ask yourself two questions. Who else is affected by how I handle this? And how can my response, shaped by courage and justice, actually serve them? Your obstacle, met with this social awareness, stops being a solitary test. It becomes your contribution, a brick you lay not only in your own path, but in the shared road we all walk. A blueprint left in the drawer never built anything. The principles don't work without daily maintenance. That's the practical hinge, the daily review. The reset, it's the small ritual that turns philosophy from something you know into something you do. The Stoics understood that. They didn't just think about virtue. They started each morning by priming their minds for it. Seneca wrote about his morning meditation. He used those quiet first hours not to plan his schedule, but to set his inner compass. He would remind himself of human nature, the fickleness of fortune, his own purpose. He was warming up his character like an athlete stretching before a race. He was pre-loading the operating system, so when the day's obstacles booted up, his response would be automatic, grounded, clear. This morning practice is about intention, not information. You're not studying new concepts, you're installing the ones you already believe into the front of your awareness. You're creating a default setting of calm agency before the world suggests otherwise. The goal is to make the Stoic lens your first lens, not your last resort. There's a simple 2-minute routine. Find a quiet moment with your morning coffee or just after you wake. First, recall the dichotomy of control. Acknowledge it silently. Today, many things will happen. Some will be within my control, my judgments, my efforts, my actions. Most will not. My peace depends on remembering the difference. That takes 10 seconds. It draws the boundary. Next, visualize one potential challenge. Just one, a difficult meeting, a long commute, a chore you've been avoiding. See it calmly in your mind's eye. Then apply the reframe. Ask, how could this be an opportunity to practice patience? Or courage or kindness? This isn't worrying, it's strategic rehearsal that takes 30 seconds. Finally, affirm one key virtue for the day. Pick one word. Today, my guiding virtue is temperance, or courage, or justice. Hold that word in your mind. Decide that, no matter what happens, you will look for one chance to express it. That's your anchor. The entire ritual is brief, quiet, powerful. It's not about crafting the perfect day. It's about crafting a resilient self to meet any day. So, your turn. What would your 2-minute Stoic morning look like? Could it be those 3 steps spoken softly, or a single line from Marcus Aurelius, read and reflected upon? The form doesn't matter, the function does. This small daily reset is the maintenance. It keeps the inner citadel strong. It ensures every obstacle you meet doesn't find you unprepared. It finds you already standing on your own ground, ready to begin the work of turning it into an advantage. The blueprint isn't something you check off in the moment. You build it when things are calm, so it's ready when they aren't. It's a single way of seeing with 3 parts to it: perception, to see the thing for what it is; action, to do what you can with what you have; and will, to tie your effort to the work itself, not the outcome. They're not steps, they're angles you hold together. To see the obstacle clearly, to act within your circle, to will your effort toward what's right. We started with judgment. The first arrow is the event. The second arrow, the story of disaster, that's the one we choose to shoot. We use the control filter, drawing the line over and over between what's ours and what isn't, saving our energy for what we can actually change. We talked about practice, choosing discomfort on purpose to toughen the spirit, and we put virtue at the center. The real gain isn't the external win, it's the integrity you build by responding well. Epictetus had a line on this. He said, difficulty shows what a man is. The obstacle doesn't conceal your character, it reveals it. It creates the friction that shows your true nature. That's the last reframe. You're not a victim of circumstance. You're the one building the response. Every obstacle, any obstacle, is just material delivered to the site. Your character is what you choose to build with it. That's the Stoic shift, to stop asking why this is happening to you, to start asking what this makes possible in you. The world will keep sending the material. Your power is in the craft.